All right, we're doing a battery rundown test on the Surface Pro 9 5G with ARM and the Surface Pro 9 Intel version. We just started, unplugged both, 35% brightness on both, and recommended settings. So we're going to do it for 2 hours because who's got time to sit here all day for 8 and 10 hours, especially with this one will last over 8 hours. I tested this lasting 8.5 hours with light use, and it still had about 10%, 5 to 10% less left on battery. So we're going to do a proper 2-hour test. The sound is on about 25% for the YouTube video, and then we have the battery right here. So let's do it. Again, I made sure I didn't watch any reviews before making my first review, because if I did, I would have been sorely disappointed. So a lot of feedback from the tech bloggers, vloggers, and social media gurus has been that these devices need to be better. They need to be better at this. They need to have longer battery life. They need to have more ports. They need to be cheaper. And where does that actually ever happen in technology? If you think about it, on the consumer side, people love their MacBooks and their iPads, and those are not the cheapest products. They don't have the most ports. People like them because of how great they look, how simple the software is to use, and how good the service is. So I don't understand why people, especially the tech bloggers and vloggers, think that Microsoft would do any different. Remember, when they created these products, they were supposed to be aspirational. They're aspirational products so that their original equipment manufacturers, the OEMs that buy Windows licenses, that they have something to strive for, mimic, and sometimes straight up copy. There are a couple of companies like Dell and Lenovo that have copied some of the 2-in-1 or most of the 2-in-1 features, especially over the past 5 years when they really got popular. So that is Microsoft's goal. They don't want everyone to buy Surfaces. Surfaces are for people that appreciate the design and the portability. And on top of that, if you like using pen input and the 2-in-1 features, then you're really gonna love these. It's not really about having the fastest computer, best specs at the cheapest price. If it was, everyone would be buying the cheapest computer that could run their programs. But we know, based on how much money Apple makes, that's not what people are looking for in their products. So the tech YouTubers, vloggers, and bloggers, they continue to tell you what ports are missing, what's not on the product. People really want to know, how does a product feel? Are they easy to use? Do they enjoy using it? And maybe is the battery life long enough and they're happy with that performance? All right, so after 34 minutes, I muted the YouTube video and I put the resolution of the video all the way down to 144p because I'm leaving the Wi-Fi on both of them. We're down to 85% on Intel and 89% on the ARM. Some interesting things do happen at the end of this test, but after 1 hour, a lot doesn't change. In our next test, you'll see some different things we decide to try out that change, but for the most part, you're going to get 10% battery loss on the ARM version, and then you're going to get about 15% per hour battery loss on the Intel version. Now, for someone like myself, I want the extra performance, but the ARM version is really catching up, especially on battery, because it performs almost exactly the same on battery as it does with power. So that's the same thing with the MacBooks. So once they can double the performance of the ARM version, then that will be very interesting. But the other thing that would keep me with the Intel version is video editing. Obviously, I'm making this video or turning this into a video, so I want to be able to use Thunderbolt ports and external GPUs. My kids were even gaming on the Surface connected to an external GPU. So a lot of people that talk about these products, they don't really use them. They just think about what is the price and is it too much? Did they give you enough for the price? That's what they're trying to put out there as content. But if you really think about what are the benefits of this product, it's portable, it is easy to hold if you want to read, it's easy to put in a small bag, it's easy to carry on an airplane tray. It's not as good a tablet as an iPad Pro because it's not really a tablet, it's a two-in-one, but it can do most of the things an iPad Pro can do. So after 1 hour, we lost 15% on the ARM 5G and we lost 21% on the Intel processor. So we're gonna keep it going and see how things go. We're also at 20% brightness. I moved it down to 20% brightness because you can still see the screen perfectly fine on these devices. Let's see here. Actually, no, it's at 30%. And let's see what we're at here. Yeah, it's 35%. So if we move it all the way down now, after 1 hour to 20%, let's see if that changes anything and extends the battery life. You can still see the screens perfectly fine. This one looks darker from here, and they're the same thing, just on screen it looks darker because it's further away. If I move it here, you'll see it's not darker. So I'll turn it that way. So now we're on 20% brightness after 1 hour. So for example, if you wanted to extend the battery life and still use it constantly, how long would it last? So right now we're looking at maybe a little over 5 hours for the i7 Intel, and we'll see with ARM, because initially I played a YouTube video at 4K for 35 minutes with the sound on, so I turned the sound off now. So we're gonna see if that extends it in the second hour, and we might even go longer to get a more conclusive test. We have Wi-Fi on both of them. I turned off OneDrive and Dropbox because that constantly reads the hard drive. So if you're wondering why your laptop, PC, Mac, whatever it is, gets lower battery life, check that you're not syncing constantly with storage if you're downloading huge files or something of that nature. Also, most people would not watch a YouTube video for 4 hours, but we're not going to turn it off. We're just going to leave it on to see the worst case scenario. If you're really using your device straight, how long it will last. One thing I do agree with that some of the tech YouTubers and bloggers have been talking about is I think almost every computer, especially on the Windows side, should have 16 gigabytes of RAM now. I think 8 gigabytes is fine if it's for a child, for example. So I don't mind having that option there. Maybe you can call it the kids version or the school version. But for Windows, if you're doing a lot of work on it, 8 gigabytes of RAM after a few years of installing programs and working on it, it does get tight. It is manageable though. If you do work and you have Zoom open and you're on a meeting and you have a few tabs open in Chrome or Edge, that's perfectly fine for 8 gigabytes of RAM. But anything over that, and your computer, especially the Surface, is going to start getting a little bit tight from a memory standpoint. So if it was me and I was purchasing one of these devices, I would get the 16 gigabyte version. But if it's for school and you're a student and you're only going to be using it for taking notes and using Microsoft Word and maybe Zoom for classes or meetings, then 8 gigabytes of RAM is fine. If you're going to be doing a lot of multitasking and you don't like closing out programs, just giving yourself that extra room with 16 gigabytes of RAM is going to be very useful. Unfortunately, that's not available in the base model, and you have to get the i7, at least right now. I know later on Microsoft usually adds a version with a i5 processor and 16 gigabytes of RAM. So if you need one now, just go ahead, and you can afford it, just go ahead and get the 16 gigabytes of RAM version, because you're going to be happier with your experience. Secondarily, the other issue they brought up regarding the hard drive space being so small and Microsoft wanting to push people to the cloud. I think 256 gigabytes of RAM is not a lot, but if you're not a video editor like a lot of these people are, or a programmer, then that's perfectly fine. If you're a programmer, you might be using external SSDs anyway, or the great thing about the Surface now is they make it really easy to upgrade your SSD yourself for a couple of $100, even less than $100. You can find a 1 terabyte SSD for less than $200. So that would actually save you money if you need to upgrade your hard drive later. You don't have to pay for it now, though. You could always upgrade it a year from now if you need to. So that's the other benefit of the upgradability, where no other tablet you can upgrade the hard drive. And even 2-in-1s, a lot of them you cannot upgrade the hard drive. So I would focus on increasing your RAM first, getting more RAM as much as you can get. If you're an engineer and you use CAD software, then maybe getting the 32 gigabytes of RAM. But then the problem with that one is you're going to be paying almost $3,000 after taxes. You are going to pay $3,000 after taxes, which I think is absurd. When you could just get a premium thin and light gaming laptop that has 32 gigabytes of RAM, you can get one right now for less than $2,000, and you can find them on sale for $1,500 to $1,800. And that's the price you would pay for a 16 gigabyte of RAM Surface. But keep in mind, those are two totally different products, and that's what vloggers and bloggers like to do, compare them. This is almost like a cell phone. It's like having a high-powered cell phone that runs Windows, because you can hold it in your hand and it doesn't feel that heavy. It's not that cumbersome. It looks good. It's more of a lifestyle product than most other Windows laptops and desktops, because you can take them everywhere with you. Whereas you're not going to take a gaming laptop everywhere you go. You can take these 2-in-1s, especially the Surface, everywhere you go. They make different cases for them. UAG makes a military grade case for it where you could even attach it to your hand. There's so many different tools. They have the MagSafe like dock with the magnet. So there's so many things that make this more of a lifestyle product. But the other issue for someone like me is I have kids. So being able to move around and use this around the house, around the office when I'm traveling, that makes a huge difference in my lifestyle. So that is why I choose a Surface product, where something like a MacBook Air. The new MacBook Air is very similar, very light, easy to use. The only downside with the MacBook Air is you can't detach the keyboard and kind of use it as a reading device or hold it in your hand. But the iPad Pro you can do that with, but then if you want to switch back to work mode because you forgot to do something, which is what happens to me all the time, I end my workday and then I forgot to do, and it's just only going to take 5 minutes. So before with the iPad Pro, I would have to put down my iPad Pro and then go get a real computer so I can get some work done for 5 minutes and then go all the way back upstairs, downstairs, or to my office, wherever it is. But with a 2-in-1 like the Surface, it can go from play to work to play to work to serious work to gaming device if you attach an eGPU to a workstation with the eGPU. Because what we found out in our testing is we plugged in the Surface Laptop Studio with 16 gigabytes of RAM. It has last year's Intel 11th gen processor. We plugged that into my 3080, and then we plugged the Surface Pro 9 Intel i7 with the U series processor, which is a lower wattage, less heat processor than the Surface Laptop Studio, but it's newer. So I wanted to see what the performance difference was. And you'll be shocked to find out that when I rendered a video, a very long detailed video that I edited yesterday, it was the GPU that was taking up most of the workload because of the NVENC encoder that's in the eGPU of the graphics card. That's in the graphics card. So the eGPU is just the enclosure for the graphics card. I have an Aorus gaming box, and guess what? Both computers rendered the video in about 18.5 minutes. There may have been a 10-second difference where the Surface Pro was about 10 seconds slower, but it was almost imperceptible, the difference. So my point is, if you're doing intense work, a lot of that can be offloaded to an external graphics card, and then you can keep the portability of being able to carry around a Surface Pro 9 in any room of your house, any room of your office, into a meeting, out of a meeting, on vacation, back to work, whatever you want to do. And then most importantly, for those people that are artists, the pen input and the refresh rate of the screen, they've knocked it out of the park. They've made a lot of improvements since I had the Surface Pro 3, the Surface Pro 6. The pen is actually very enjoyable to use now. It feels a little bit different than the iPad Pro, but it doesn't feel as slick. So the pen is top notch, the Slim Pen 2. I love it. All right, we've reached the 3-hour mark, and the results are not surprising. We're at 66% on the ARM version, 55% on Intel. So that means if you really need to, you could probably squeeze out 9 hours on this. If you're doing intense work and you put it all the way down to 20% like this, or maybe even 15% screen brightness, you could probably get 7 hours, which lasts a whole workday for most people, because you're not going to leave YouTube running for 7 hours straight. I've had these YouTube videos running for 3 hours straight. Intel still performed pretty well. This is 55%, so you're looking at 7 hours, a little over 7 hours at 20% screen brightness. You could probably get it to last longer if you, let's see how it looks at, okay, that's just sound. Let's see, yeah, so anything under 10% is hard to see, but I can still read it. So at 10%, you could probably get over 7 hours. So we're still at 20% on this one, screen brightness. And you multiply that by 3, This one would be off by then. It's 7 hours approximately, and this battery would probably be at 0. So you could, like I said, you could shoot to comfortably get 8 hours on this, comfortably get 6.5 on this one, comfortably, but you'll still have a little bit of battery to spare. This has way more performance than this, almost double the performance. So if you're in the need for speed, you need the performance, Intel's still the way to go. Just buy a external battery if you're going to be traveling. But this charges really quickly as well, so that is also useful. You have the quick charging to 50%, I believe, in about 30 minutes. So there is our YouTube runtime battery test. Next time we will do a intense battery test to see how well they do. Take care.
Let's go.